you're, I would say you don't have to know what your karma is, mostly, in order for it to clear. So a lot of my teachers, one that works on me a lot, says, you know, Hugh, you're way too analytical. None of these people have to know any of this stuff. And I said, well, that's true, my mind does. But you don't have to know your karmas to be effectively clearing them. Like, you may not know anything this evening as we're folding the Joss paper, and on New Year's Day, if you choose to participate, and that, I'll explain what happens. Your karma is going to be cleared. It's going to go to dark souls. You may not know who they are or what it's about. So, but your sincerity and your focus, yes. It's the heart. Asking for the feeling of forgiveness is the key, one of the keys.
So if some of the karma is cleared, are you able to, can other karma then come in later on from other dimensions, other lifetimes, because of the way time works and all that?
Now this is karma. If I do a chart for you, I'm tracking all the karma from any lifetime.
Okay.
Okay. The only karma, and one of the things I shortened this briefing, but in a more detailed conversation we would have, Master Shah has been, for example, he's been out meditating in China privately for several months. So his soul frequency has been going up and up and up. So on that pyramid, you saw that reverse triangle, he's been working his way up the white on the light side. That means he's now able to see more darkness, and as a result, because of his communications with me, I found hidden karma in about 5 of my clients that I didn't know about because he told me about them. That makes sense? But that was because of his movement up higher. You can now, it's like, you know, as you go higher in a building, you can see
more, right.
So he could see more dark karma that I wasn't aware of in several clients, so I went back and told him about it and helped him clear it.
But I thought you had mentioned during our conversations, and perhaps earlier tonight, about like the forgiveness practice and how that important is to clear that. What if a person doesn't have time for that? Are the selfless acts of kindness enough?
Absolutely.
To balance that out, or?
Remember now, we're not dealing with like chemistry or physics, where you know you put two things together and they behave a certain way. You're dealing with dark souls that have consciousness. So if your karma, and I've had a number of this happen with several clients, karma gets forgiven for them, they get lazy, they don't do forgiveness practices, they don't change, blah, karma comes back. They say, hey, screw you. That's how karma is, dark soul consciousness is involved in it. So yeah, absolutely, it can come back.
So you have to maintain.
Yes.
To stay there. But if you don't have enough time, like if you have a really busy schedule and you don't have an hour to do a meditation practice, is the selfless acts enough, or it depends?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Your mileage may vary.
It's going to vary. That's why the results may vary for it.
Right. Okay.
You don't know what lifetime you're dealing with and who you offended and what happened. You know, you could probably go to a regressionist if you have something that persistently will not clear, find out what happened. That might be useful. But generally speaking, if you're sincere to do your work, it's not going to come back because it's like a payoff to the mafia. And we'll talk about this with the Wanda. Basically, what's happening in the Wanda ceremony, and I don't want to spoil this slide, but you're paying off. And when Master Guo, I showed you that slide. It was Master Shah's master.
Yes.
He told a story one time about snakes. Some kid had killed snakes, and he was trying to clear the karma from this kid who had been bitten by a snake and was dying of a snake bite. And so he called on the spirit of the snakes, and they go, no hell, no way. This kid used to torture snakes when he was a kid. We're not forgetting. So he was trying to explain that this isn't love and light. You know, it's like, he's wheeling and dealing with snakes to save a kid's life because they're not going to forgive the karma from them killing other snakes.
Wow.
So it's not what you think it is. It's a lot of wheeling and dealing. It's like backroom deals.
Yeah.
And so karma absolutely can return if you're not sincere. It can return just because of the hell of it. I mean, sometimes that happens. Now, new karma is you're behaving, let's say you had your financial karma cleared and then you start running, doing money laundering or something, that's going to come back. You'll have a new financial karma. I'm sorry. That won't be the old stuff, it'll be the new stuff.
Thank you.
So you gotta when you clean up your act, you gotta kind of stick in that, you gotta stay there, It's kind of a disturbing thought. Well, I mean, not a disturbing thought. So once you start getting this conscious and you understand this, it's like, oh man, you know, they're all watching.
No turning back.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, your sincerity definitely is one of the biggest variables.
And how high is the variable of coming out of separation and recognizing aloud or being out of separation?
I'm not sure I understand.
So we see ourselves as being separate from our divine self. And that is, I think, where karma starts to find its path. So my feeling is that as we are able to come out of separation, then it clears karma naturally.
Well, there is a karma with the divine. That might be in that area you're talking about. Clearing karma with the divine. And I'm not quite sure what it is. It might be. It seems to be different from personal karma. So perhaps that's where that is. Matter blocks. This is Jeff Premack. If you have ever met anybody you think is intense, you've never met. You got to go meet this guy. I'll just tell you one little story. I went to a food healing class in Orlando all day, 8 to 8. Okay, and he's dressed like that, and he's probably the most fit human on the earth, really damn close, if nothing else. And he told everybody to turn their cell phones off, right? And you're thinking, oh, this is okay. So who would have their cell phone off? Class is starting, right? He's about to talk. Well, about 10 minutes in, you know, so somebody's phone goes off, and he stops. His face turns red. He says, I told you to turn the phone. Everybody turn their phone off now. And it's only 8:30 in the morning, and he's not woke. He's not awake yet. And then 10 minutes later, somebody's phone goes off again, and he has to stop. And he says, and he turns instantly into a warrior. I mean, he's already warrior-like enough, but I mean, he's instantly in the warrior mode. He says, the next time a phone goes off, I'm going to come down in that chair and I'm going to rip you out of that chair and destroy your phone. Okay, and this is a food healing class. But yeah, but thank God for he's on the earth, because that intensity caused him to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning reading every report and study on food that probably ever existed. That's how intense he is. And so I'm going to share some of that with you tonight. These are the books he's produced. One's on smoothies, one's on cookbook, and the other one's on all the different foods and what they do to the body to reverse disease. This is a disclosure. For many years, he operated just as a guy who'd been to China and learned this stuff from studies, and he didn't have any real backing. And the state of Florida was, screwing with him for practicing medicine and borderline. And so this doctor here, Claudia Gabriel, somehow she took one of his classes, and she said, I learned more about food and nutrition in his class than I did in the entire med school. Yeah. And she's from Harvard and M.D., real M.D.
Bravo.
She comes to many of his presentations. I've met her several times, so he's got her endorsement now, which gives him some credibility to the state of Florida. But it still took me 3 years to pass his test, because he makes it intentionally hard. 300 questions, and he really tries to make them as hard as possible. So I had to keep going back. This is an eye chart, but basically these are CNN's top pre-existing medical conditions. All the stuff that's going on now in medical care. Right? These are the conditions most people have. And what you're looking at here with respect to Jeff, these are the foods and the smoothies that address those conditions. So you see it's almost 85-90% coverage there on dealing with reversing many of these diseases. And that's the right language, by the way. It's not healing, it's reversing disease. And everything is backed by studies. This is science. He wants to make sure you understand that. Here's a yellow grapefruit as an example. Cancer and antiviral. Okay, so I can't see it. Liminin. This is the chemicals, this is the stuff we didn't learn. That's the part that fights cancer. These are the study references. This is the other one, naringenin. That's the antiviral, and that's the phytochemical, and that's the study. Now, there's 7 times more of this in a yellow grapefruit than in a red grapefruit. This is how detailed it gets. So in a red grapefruit, whoops, most of this is blocking out. It's a lycopene, so this has antioxidant capabilities, completely different purpose, the red grapefruit than the yellow grapefruit, so it's that detailed. Blending grapefruit increases absorption 130%. We'll talk about a blender here in a moment. Why do you need a blender? I mentioned this to somebody. This is an avocado seed, contains hundreds of phytochemicals. And in many of his smoothies, you put the entire seed in the blender. So you can't have a cheap blender. Okay? Now this is my personal story, my blood pressure. I took from 180 to 150 just basically with one of his smoothies for high blood pressure, which is the primary ingredient was celery. Yes. No blood pressure medicine at all. Chinese have been using it for 5,000 years to reduce blood pressure. So if you're interested, and there's the phytochemical, so we had to know all that. So I don't know if you remember the Basamatic. Yeah. You don't need a Basamatic. What you do need is either a Blendtec or a Vitamix with 3 horsepower. If you're serious. Now, I think you should be serious. This is the easiest, cheapest way to start helping yourself is start, even though it's at the matter level, it's amazing. This is like the hand of 4 sevens. So here's my trick question for you. I'm going to do a workshop on this at some point. What is the healthiest way to eat carrots? A, raw, B, juiced, or C, sauteed in butter? Juice. Wait, what do we got now? Juice. Butter. We got a juice. How many for juiced? Okay, how many for raw? And how many for sauteed in butter? Like my butter. D. Okay, the sauteed in butter is the correct answer. Okay, and here's why. Okay, so here are the science behind it right here. Okay, so it contains carotenoids, and they are absorbed when the heat releases the phytochemicals. You have to heat them, number one. And they're also fat soluble, not water soluble. So you want the fat from the butter to help them absorb into the body. So that's 2 reasons right there. You never want to juice unless you're really, really sick. There's very few value, there's almost no value in juicing. Drinking too many juice, well, that's what this is for, yeah. If you have too much juice, you're going to wipe out your digestive fire. Okay? The body needs to actually work. You don't want to juice. That's not. Okay, this is a testimonial. Because of the setup here, I don't think I'm going to play it just a minute or so. This woman basically testifying that on some of his smoothie recipes, she got her HIV count down from the millions to 0. Okay. So what that probably tells you is that whatever was wrong with her was not karmic. Right? Now let's assume that she's still healthy. I don't know if he tracked her, but perhaps her HIV counts went down to 0. It could come back. If it's karmic, that smoothie is not going to last another year or so. It's going to come back. So I don't know if he tracks that, but let's hope that it wasn't karmic. All right, 3-level programs is something I'm offering. You'll see it in the handout. There's a medical disclaimer right here. This is what I do. I'm going to give you all 3 levels real quick. This is my routine at the moment. Okay, the soul level, I do healing work. I chant Love, Peace, and Harmony. I fall one and burn one bell. I do group healing sessions on Tuesday nights, and I contribute financially to other. A lot of my clients go down in money in the early days. At the energy level, far IR bottom mat, qigong, acupuncture, quantum pulse, and blessed water. Those are baths in Berkeley Springs. Bless the water. Go in there and take a bath. At the matter level, massage, ion foot bath, herbs, smoothies, blessed water, certain, and then these are the supplements: macadamia nuts, watermelon, cantaloupe. Anybody know why I would be eating cantaloupe? And when I would eat it? First thing in the morning before you eat anything else. And it contains superoxide dismutase, which kills off superoxide in the body, one of the biggest antioxidant capabilities. It will age you and kill you, superoxide. So if you eat cantaloupe, it's one of the few natural sources of superoxide dismutase. But you have to eat it before anything else. So have it first, no coffee yet, eat the cantaloupe. Macadamia nuts, anybody know why we do that? No? It contains, it wipes out one of the indicators for heart disease, so it's very good for anybody that has a heart issue. To eat a few, only 2 or 3. When you eat any nuts in this program, you eat them like a squirrel, which means you take time. A squirrel doesn't have a bag of chocolate-covered nuts sitting there watching TV. Right? He's got to open them up, take the energy, and he can only eat a few of them. So that's the same concept with these nuts. So macadamia nuts are very hard to do that with because of the fats they have. They're just like, you need them just like potato chips. But you've got to stop at 3. Anybody know why I would be eating watermelon?
Diuretic.
And that's all year long. That's not just a summer picnic.
It's a diuretic.
Yeah, lycopene. It has lycopene, and you want to eat the watermelon all the way out to the green. You want to eat that white part because of the lycopene. Okay, it has twice as much or 3 times as much in the white rind. And that is actually for kidneys and sexual functions. It clears that. Berries is a whole other issue. Water gets blessed. You can actually bless water. Master Mario, one of our teachers, blesses water on Tuesday nights. Always get my water blessed. Anyway, the other thing about this, it's not just this, it's the sequence. For me to get heavy metals out of my body, which I've been doing for 2 years, I get deep tissue massages, 2 hours from the strongest Chinese guy I can find. Then I take an ion foot bath, which you ever heard of those, that pulls up, and once all that's been released in the limb, then I also bring down Heaven's Herbs. So I have Heaven's Herbs coming down at the same time as the foot bath after having gotten a 2-hour Chinese massage. So the sequencing, and then you would not believe how many metals come out in that water. You can just see them. It's floating all over the place. And it's extremely powerful way to remove metals. But these are customized, and it's one of the products. This is what it looks like. I sent this to a client. Soul Energy Matter. I'm offering these. It's on the worksheet. These come down. I guess in this audience I can say that. So it's customized to you, and I don't make it up. I've got to be careful down here at the matter level of not practicing medicine. So what I'm not sure about yet is how to do that for you. If you want one, I may have this part be a phone call, and you write it down. Okay, just a testimonial real quick from one of my clients who got rid of the rest of her metals after I told her, I didn't tell her, after she started using ion foot bath. Same thing with, this is another testimonial about getting rid of diabetes, the remnants of diabetes with bitter melon because it actually mimics insulin. So you can do some extremely powerful things down at that level. Okay, so now we're into the experiential phase. You want to know if a pear is sweet tasted? That's what Master Shan said. So what I want to do is we're going to chant, just love this, see, where was that? The guy who, can you start that? Sure. I have these CDs for sale, but what I want to explain to you about this CD, it's not, once again, it's not just a CD. This CD can be used as a form of service. And I didn't understand that for the longest time. When you chant this CD, it's like serving others. It's not chanting. Okay? It contributes to, it's extremely powerful. It will make changes in your life immediately, fairly quickly, actually. This is a story, you can start at any time. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I want to get. Oh, wait, Lucky's not. I'm sorry, that was a YouTube. On YouTube? I'm sorry, that was a YouTube video. Yeah, we'll come out of here and YouTube video. So this is a Chinese restaurant. The story I wanted to tell you is that they were having trouble making money. So Master Sha gave the CD, told them to play 24/7, and about a week later they had a lot more business, and 2 weeks later they had more business, and 3 weeks later they had more business. So clearing something in the business karma just by playing the music. So it's pretty easy to use this CD to get places, to make things change. I had one client, I had to spend 6 hours with her, not recruiting her, she came to me because she was Christian and her husband didn't want her to deal with me, she wanted to lose this guy. 6-hour interview essentially, and one of the things she ended up getting was this book and that CD. She took it home and she found him playing the CD, which I thought was kind of interesting because he was in the biggest resistance to her working with me. But she was seeking something other than Catholicism, and she didn't know what it was. So, I think what we'll do is I gotta pop out of here and play it. But this song came down, if you're open to this, from the Divine, and it's designed to create love, peace, and harmony around the world. So I think the simplest thing this evening is to just explain it to you and then turn it on, and then you can follow along for a little bit here. It's sung in 3 different languages. The first one is Chinese. Then the next iteration is Soul language, I'll explain that, and then English. So in the English you'll hear, I love my heart and soul, I love all humanity, join all hearts and souls together, love, peace, and harmony, love, peace, and harmony. So that's what this is saying. Soul language we skipped over really quickly. Everybody has soul language, and it's a way of your soul communicating with other souls. There's no language barrier. It doesn't sound like anything you'll recognize. Like ooh la lee, you'll hear that, and that's the soul language part. Let's see if I have that. Alright, that was on this. Some people really like the music. Become addictive if you're traveling. Sometimes, like today, I can listen. You can mentioned, this book is much more than a book. I wouldn't even think of it as a book. It's got 9 calligraphies in here. Let's see if I get to that right. Okay, there's the first one. Each one of them has a name and a function. This book contains it contains the source field. So inside of this book with these calligraphies, you have source love, forgiveness, compassion, and light. But what happens is that these are portals. And when I was going to make this slide, I was thinking of a Stargate. And I spent like a half an hour looking at different Stargate images. I kept going, no. And I was told, this is what, because I can't see, this is what happens when you open these portals. These are like light switches. You turn them on and you turn them off. You only use them for maybe, 10 to 30 minutes at a time. You don't sit there and open them up and have them play all day. So now the book is different. If you have a problem, you can put the book under your pillow. Let's say you're getting attacked by something at night. You can put this book under your pillow, or you can put your hand on your heart and then a hand on a calligraphy and ask for healing. So it works in different ways. I'll just tell you that these are actual photographs of 12-foot calligraphies that are 12 feet tall. And I went out to New York City to see Master Shah, and these were hanging there. And this was in my skeptical days. And I was told, yeah, you turn them on and turn them off, they're vortexes and stuff. Oh yeah, okay. So I go up to one, I addressed it, turned it on, all of a sudden it started swirling in a vortex. And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, wow. And I tried all 10 of them to see if every one of them did the same thing. I said, well, I bet it doesn't work in a book. So when I got home, you probably have to be in the presence of the 12-foot calligraphies. And I did it when I got home in the book, and then I started going in a vortex as well, swirling around in this energy field. I think they were just trying to show me that my skepticism wasn't warranted. When Master Shah writes these, people that with open third eyes can actually see it's not just ink, it's actually fire from heaven that comes into the brush. And so these are very sacred, and let's see what I can say about that. This is one called Tao, which is greatest love. That's what it looks like. It's in the book. We don't have time for an exercise on it, but I want to point it out to you how you would use that. So some of the ways with body power I just mentioned to you. You can touch it to your body, you can lay on and so forth. But you always want to say hello to the thing. You want to address it. And so it tells you in the book how to talk to it, how to turn it on, and how to turn it off. I'll talk about that in a moment. Okay? So saying hello is called soul power. Mind power is your visualization. That's where you're visualizing if you're trying to heal a headache or light or something. You're visualizing that goal of light wherever you want it. That's a visualization technique called mind power. Sound power is, you can say things like, God heals me, thank you, God heals me. It's like kind of chanting. You're verbalizing what you want to happen. You can also trace the calligraphy by putting your hands like this and going like that. You trace the calligraphy. Once you figure out how you don't want to do it wrong, you want to make sure you know the right sequence first. But when you do that, it's getting all the meridians in your body. So it's going from the calligraphy through your fingers into all the different meridians. That's why you trace it like that. Here's a forgiveness practice. First of all, here's the concept. Sincerely ask for forgiveness, unconditionally forgive others. See, it's 2 parts. This is part of it's called Julian practice or spiritual practice. And that's a typical forgiveness practice. You'll see one in the book. That's something you want to do every day. It only takes a few minutes. So it's not something you have to spend 30 minutes on. It's just a part of your day. So this one, so the forgiveness going both directions. Things you've done to others and then others have done to you. It's both ways. And then when you close, if you want to do it the Chinese way, it's how, thank you. Thank you, Master Shah, Divine, Down the Source, Gong Song. And that's like a sealing. It's like putting the top back on the jar, turning the light off. So you don't want to leave them on. In addition, there's also downloads in this book that you can get that come with the book. That when you read to that part, you can download these little golden balls that do different things. They're part of the book. There's also mantras and meditations in there. So enough on the book. Both the book and the CD are very powerful ways of clearing karma. The most powerful way, of course, is Wama. And I don't want to diminish those. Those are easier to do on a daily basis. You can put the CD in your car, you can play it overnight. You can trace in the evening. Wambao is a little bit different. Wambao ceremony is basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking joss paper, and you have 10 sheets there, and we're going to be folding it so that it looks like Chinese currency. Now this joss paper that I gave you has gold and silver foil on it, and the reason is that what we're going to be doing is folding it with forgiveness, and then on New Year's Day, if you choose to participate in mailing Wambao, I'll perform a fire ceremony in which this gets burned. I'll show you what happens during a burning ceremony, but essentially what happens is that silver and gold, there's a spiritual alchemy that takes place. And as it goes up, the dark souls that you have offended, you can ask, as you're folding, you can fold it with specific intention, or you can fold it saying, please provide it to whoever needs it in my history, or whatever. So you can focus it or genericize it. Anyway, as that gold and silver goes up, dark souls are going to be there trying to get it. It's called virtue. That's what they're wanting. We're going to do some of that this evening. This is YouTube. In your handout, you'll see a reference to a YouTube that tells you how to do this, but we're going to do a little bit of it tonight. We're going to fold the 10 pieces that you have. Now, here's something to keep in mind. You're thinking, well, if you fold about this much joss paper, let's say $10, you go to a store, you order it on Amazon. The question that I had is, what is that? Is there a way of simplifying what that is worth? Does anybody have any idea what folding $10 worth of joss paper might be worth in real money?
$2.
Yeah, like in dollars. This is an abstract concept. Spiritual dollars. Yeah.
Well, if you have financial issues and you were able to make millions of dollars after doing this, that's a lot of money.
Oh no, that's true. But what I mean is, this. Let's say you went out and got a pack this much of this stuff before this January, and you mailed it to me and burned it. And you spent $10 on this much paper, which is sort of roughly right. What do you think that roughly the abstract value of that, as it gets thrown into the fire, roughly, just kind of an abstract concept. What do you think that might be worth?
$1 million.
Huh?
1 million.
100? Million?
1,000 karma points.
What's that?
1,000 karma points.
What it's worth is about $20,000. That's sort of a weird thing, but I did ask that question because I wanted to know, like, is there any way to explain this for people that this is pretty weird stuff? So this is alchemy, basically, right? Your effort to fold this, that's part one, that still has to be burned, don't get me wrong, it's not worth $20,000 until I burn it. But that's the conversion, which you may want to think about that. So here's how it works. Up here's the divine or the creator. Here's you folding, right? Okay, you mail this, let's say to me, and I burn it on New Year's Day. So here's the fire. And up comes the virtue, and there's all the dark souls hanging out waiting for it. That is basically what goes on. So that's a very dangerous ceremony, as you can imagine. So have to put up a lot of protection, have the general soldiers come in and so forth. So it's not a trivial issue to conduct one of these because all of these dark souls are there to get virtue. And what you've just thrown in the fire is 20 grand.
You said they get virtue. What does that mean?
That means they don't want to be dark. Most of these don't want to be dark. They want to go back to the light.
So
To go back to the light, they need virtue.
they're being free. They're being liberated.
Yeah. Now that's scenario one.
And it's because they choose, they want this, and they're
Yeah, that's why they're there. And scenario 2 is your ancestors, and I'll tell you an interesting story about the last one of these I ran just on Labor Day. A friend of mine said, let this go to anybody in my ancestral lineage who needs it. And so, not just dark souls, but ancestors will show up because they, in the other world, dimensional world, they have karma too. They left with karma. And they're now aware that they're going to reincarnate and not have, depending on what their karma is going to be aware of. They're probably not too happy about that. So anything you can do for them, they would be very grateful for. So that will show up as well. And this is a real story. So this gentleman, I'm not going to give you his name. I hope I didn't put it up there. His soul showed up on Labor Day. This was done with some channeling and some other analytics to figure out who it was. Okay? He was the uncle of the client's grandfather on the mother's side. Way back there from the 1800s. And he had massive financial karma from the 1800s. Whatever he did in the 1800s, massive financial karma. And he wanted help. So basically he was there. He came to the Wanda ceremony. I guess he got something, but he came to me like 4 or 5 times in my morning healing sessions to get